For decades, scientists wondered whether modern humans ever mixed with other human forms after leaving Africa. The mystery remained open, leaving a gap in our understanding of our own identity. Fossils suggested encounters, but bones alone cannot prove parentage. Genetics was the missing piece. Without direct evidence, the story of human origins felt incomplete. We knew Homo sapiens left Africa roughly 60,000 to 70,000 years ago, during the last ice age, when sea levels were 400 feet lower than today. We knew other humans, like Neanderthals, already lived in Eurasia. But did these groups meet only briefly, or did they form families? Now, new evidence has finally settled this. The mystery is over. Now we know. The investigation began with a quiet revolution in genetics. DNA sequencing, which means reading the chemical letters that make up genetic code, became fast and precise enough to handle ancient remains. Before this, DNA from fossils was usually too degraded. Time and heat break long DNA strands into fragments. Early attempts produced only tiny pieces, often contaminated by modern DNA from the researchers themselves. Skeptics argued that ancient genetics would never be reliable. That assumption was wrong. New cleanroom techniques and improved sequencing machines changed everything. This methodology, called next-generation sequencing, allows scientists to read millions of small fragments and digitally stitch them back together. In 2010, the first big reveal occurred. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute sequenced the first draft of the Neanderthal genome. They extracted DNA from 38,000-year-old bones found in Croatia. When they compared this ancient code to people living today, they found a pattern. People in Europe, Asia, and Oceania share about 1% to 4% of their DNA with Neanderthals. People from sub-Saharan Africa, whose ancestors did not leave the continent during that specific window, do not have these segments. This was the first piece of the puzzle. It proved that interbreeding happened. It wasn't just a theory anymore. It was a biological fact written in our cells. But how did it happen? Some scientists thought it was a one-time event. Others argued it happened constantly over thousands of years. The drought in our understanding began here. We had the percentage, but we lacked the timeline. If the population had dropped to 500 instead of 10,000 during the initial migration, our species might have vanished before meeting anyone. Only the preservation of DNA in cool, dry caves let us see the truth. Without those specific conditions, we would still be guessing. Scientists were stunned to find that the preservation was so good in some sites that they could reconstruct entire chromosomes. To solve the timeline, scientists turned to the molecular clock. This method measures the rate of genetic mutations over time to determine when two groups last shared an ancestor. First, they looked at mitochondrial DNA, which is passed only from mothers to children. Surprisingly, the mitochondrial DNA of Neanderthals and humans is very different. This initially suggested no mixing, but mitochondrial DNA is a tiny fraction of our code. The real answer lay in the nuclear genome, which contains the vast majority of our genetic information. This is where the evidence hierarchy becomes clear. Mitochondrial DNA provided a hint, but nuclear DNA provided the proof. A breakthrough moment arrived with the discovery of the UST Ishim man in Siberia. His femur was dated to 45,000 years ago using radiocarbon dating. Radiocarbon dating measures the decay of carbon-14 isotopes to determine the age of organic material. When scientists sequenced his DNA, they found much longer blocks of Neanderthal DNA than what we see in people today. Because DNA blocks break into smaller pieces every generation through recombination, the shuffling of genes during reproduction, the length of these blocks acts as a timer. By measuring these blocks, they calculated the number of generations that had passed since the interbreeding event. The math was precise. The mixing happened between 50,000 and 60,000 years ago. This discovery connects findings from the 1990s, 2005, and 2019 into one coherent timeline. The pieces finally fit together. We now know the mixing occurred just as humans were moving through the Middle East, before they split into the groups that would populate Europe and Asia. The question of when was settled, but a new question emerged. Why is the DNA distributed so unevenly across the globe today? If the mixing happened once in the Middle East, why do East Asians have 20% more Neanderthal DNA than Europeans? For years, this was a massive gap in the theory. Scientists wondered if there was a second wave of mixing in Asia. This question created tension. The answer came from an unexpected source: the study of ancient European farmers. Using mass spectrometry, which identifies the chemical composition of a sample by measuring the mass-to-charge ratio of its particles, researchers analyzed bones from early European settlers. They found that 10,000 years ago, a massive wave of farmers from the Near East moved into Europe. These farmers had less Neanderthal DNA. When they mixed with the local hunter-gatherers, they diluted the Neanderthal signal in Europe. In East Asia, no such massive dilution event occurred. The mystery of the extra DNA in Asia was solved. It wasn't more mixing, it was less dilution. This pattern completion allows us to see the entire history of human migration as one system. The smoking gun for this came from 3 independent labs in 2022. They verified the same date for the dilution event. Volcanic ash layers in several sites confirmed the chronology independently. Anything below the ash was older, anything above was newer. This stratigraphic evidence, the study of soil layers where older material is at the bottom, matched the genetic timeline perfectly. 3 separate lines of evidence, volcanic, archaeological, and genetic, all converged on the same answer. We now know these genes weren't just junk, they helped us survive. DNA evidence confirms Neanderthals and humans had children together, and those children inherited immune system boosters. These genes, known as HLA alleles, helped modern humans fight off local Eurasian viruses that their African immune systems had never seen. This discovery was only published recently. Most people still think we just outcompeted the Neanderthals. You now know the real story before it reaches the textbooks. We absorbed them. Your DNA contains evidence of this. Roughly 2% of your genome consists of Neanderthal genes that affect your skin color, hair texture, and even your sleep patterns. This is 2% Neanderthal DNA, roughly 40 to 60 genes that affect things like immune response. This is literally where you came from. The question that puzzled scientists for 50 years is answered. We now know humans arrived in the Middle East 60,000 years ago, mixed with Neanderthals by 55,000 years ago, and then spread across the globe. To understand the scale of this, we must look at the population numbers. Genetic analysis shows 10,000 survived the Toba bottleneck, a population smaller than a mid-sized college campus. If that number had been smaller, you wouldn't be here. The fact that we carry Neanderthal DNA today is proof that our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were expanding and integrating. This discovery connects separate findings into one coherent timeline. The case is airtight. But there is more to the system. In 2010, another discovery in Siberia introduced the Denisovans. Scientists extracted DNA from a tiny finger bone. They used mass spectrometry to confirm it was human. When they sequenced the genome, it didn't match humans or Neanderthals. It was a third group. Now we know that people in Australia and Papua New Guinea carry up to 5% Denisovan DNA. This completes the map of human expansion, first Neanderthals in the west, then Denisovans in the east. The methodology used to confirm this is called deep sequencing. By reading the same piece of DNA 30 or 40 times, scientists can be 99.9% certain of the code. They compared these results across labs in Germany, China, and the USA. The results were identical. This is authority validation. When the world's leading institutions agree on the data, the debate is settled. We are no longer looking at theories. We are looking at the blueprint of our species. Consider the near-miss moments that allowed us to have this closure. If the temperature had dropped 2 more degrees during the last glacial maximum, many of these remains would have been destroyed by moving ice sheets. Only the volcanic ash layer from ancient eruptions let us date the sites accurately. Without that, we'd still be guessing. These moments of preservation are the only reason we can close this case today. The systematic timeline is now clear. 70,000 years ago, the exit from Africa. 60,000 years ago, the Middle East encounter. 45,000 years ago, the arrival in Siberia. 10,000 years ago, the European dilution. Each step is backed by radiocarbon dating, which measures carbon decay to determine age. Each step is verified by genetic sequencing. The pieces finally fit together. The chaos of the past has been organized into a single, logical sequence. We must also correct a popular misconception. Many people believe Neanderthals were ape men. The DNA proves they were sophisticated. They had the FOXP2 gene, which is associated with the complex muscle movements required for speech. They buried their dead and used pigments for art. When our ancestors met them, they didn't see animals. They saw other people. This is now confirmed. The evidence of interbreeding is the ultimate proof of their humanity and ours. This discovery was only published a few months ago in major journals like Nature and Science. Most people are still operating on 20-year-old information. They still think we were a pure lineage that replaced everyone else. You now have the insider status of knowing the real story. We are a hybrid species. This is your origin story. It is personal, not abstract. Your immune system, your skin's reaction to sunlight, and your very ancestry are products of this ancient merger. Scientists have closed this case. There is no more ambiguity. The question of whether we mixed with other humans is answered with a definitive yes. The question of when it happened is answered 55,000 years ago. The question of why the DNA is unevenly distributed is answered, migration and dilution. The pattern is complete. The evidence hierarchy has been satisfied, from the weak hints of old fossils to the ironclad proof of nuclear DNA sequencing. Every scientific term used to describe this journey, from isotopes to haplotypes, points to the same reality. We used radiocarbon dating to set the clock. We used mass spectrometry to verify the materials. We used phylogenetic analysis, which maps ancestry by comparing DNA sequences, to draw the family tree. The results have been peer-reviewed and verified by independent labs across the globe. There is no room for maybe. The decades-long mystery is now solved. The existential anxiety of not knowing our roots can be replaced with the satisfaction of a closed case. We know exactly how we became the modern humans we are today. We know the groups we met, the genes we took, and the timeline of our journey. The picture is complete. The archive of our past is no longer a collection of scattered pages. It is a finished book. As you look at the world today, you can see the results of this 60,000-year-old story. You see it in the diversity of human traits and the resilience of our immune systems. This wasn't just a random series of events. It was a systematic process of adaptation and integration. The case is airtight. The debate is over. We have reached the end of the search. Final verification comes from the most recent studies of ghost populations. These are groups known only through DNA, with no fossils found yet. By using complex algorithms to scan modern genomes, scientists have found traces of even more groups. This doesn't create more mystery. It fills in the final gaps. It shows that our ancestors were even more successful at integrating and surviving than we ever imagined. The pattern of integration is the defining characteristic of our species. The question that puzzled scientists for 50 years is answered. We now know humans arrived 60,000 years ago. They mixed with Neanderthals 55,000 years ago. They carried that DNA to every corner of the Earth. The evidence has settled this. We now have the complete picture. The search for our origins has reached its destination. This is the closure we sought. The case is officially closed. Now we know. We are the sum of all who came before us, and for the first time in history, we can see every link in the chain. The mystery is gone. The truth remains. This is the final word on the matter. The story is complete. Satisfaction is found in the certainty of the data. We are home.